Hey, what is going on guys, RvzStealth here, and in today's video we're going to continue breaking down the preseason changes. In this video we're going to be looking at the new lethality item, Sanguine Blade, and discussing which champions are best with it right now for 9.23. So let's quickly just run down Sanguine Blade here, what the item gives you. It's going to be 3,000 gold, gives you 50 AD, 10 lethality, 15% lifesteal, and the passive on it is kind of what's making it OP at the moment. When you're near one or fewer visible enemy champions, you gain 8 lethality and 40 to 100% attack speed, decaying over 3 seconds. Now what I didn't realize originally with this item is that this passive actually does not have a cooldown, and it also works just when you're split pushing and when there's no enemies near you. Originally, I thought that you had to be at least near one enemy in order for it to activate this passive, but you can just be split pushing, hitting towers, hitting minions, and you're still gonna gain that 40% attack speed there. So it just makes it so that if you're isolated in a side lane, it's such a strong item. So let's now jump into which champions are best with this item, and when doing the research for this video, I was able to come up with 17 different champions that are doing very well with Sanguine Blade in this patch. So arguably the best Sanguine Blade user in this patch is Tryndamere. Tryndamere gets a lot stronger here in preseason with the Conquer changes along with the addition of Sanguine Blade. Those two things just make him that much stronger in the side lane. It makes it so much more difficult for you to deal with him. You go for the Sanguine Blade rush on Tryndamere. After that, you go Essence Reaver and Infinity Edge. So your build after Sanguine Blade is pretty much the same as to what you'd go in previous patches, but you do want to be rushing that Sanguine Blade there because it makes you pretty much unkillable in the 1v1. The second top laner really good with a Sanguine Blade rush is Cled, so you go for Sanguine into Titanic and Black Cleaver. That setup is doing great for him on this patch, and it just means that once you pick up that Sanguine on Cled, it makes his 1v1 so strong. Cled's already a pretty good dueling champion, but once you get the Sanguine Blade, it just makes his 1v1 even better than it was before. So next up for Jax, with one OP item being removed in this patch in Spear of Sojin, a new OP item comes in Sanguine Blade and fits exactly into the item slot as to where you would go for your Spear of Sojin. So with Jax, you still want to be rushing that Trinity Force. It's just way too good of an item to pass up on for Jax, so still rush that, but going for Sanguine Blade second and then Sterix third is a very good build path for him in this patch. So a completely new look for Quinn in this preseason. We've got a new rune setup and a new build setup for Quinn going around. So it's Sanguine Blade rush on her into Stormrazor and then Infinity Edge. These two items on Quinn just give her a very strong mid-game spike there. The amount of attack speed you get from Stormrazor and from Sanguine Blade makes it so that you stack up your Conquer very quickly. And yes, you do want to be running Conquer now on Quinn instead of press the attack in 9.23. So once you get to those two items on Quinn, you're just completely devastating in the side lane. Now pretty interesting here for Fiora, Sanguine Blade Rush is actually doing best on her for patch 9.23 and then going into a Ravenous Hydra, finishing that and then going for Trinity Force. So I guess the amount of lifesteal you get from Sanguine and Ravenous Hydra there makes it so that it's very difficult for any champion to 1v1 you in the side lane. With the Sanguine Blade and the Ravenous Hunter lifesteal as well, you're just going to be lifestealing up a ton, so you can take very aggressive trades in the side lane with Fiora. Even if you get chunked out a little bit, you can just back out, lifesteal up a little bit, and then you can go right back in and look for another trade. So it just gives you a ton of lifesteal, gives you a ton of dueling potential, and this setup is great on Fiora for this patch. So for Irelia, very similar to Jax, you still want to be going for your Trinity Force as your first item. The item is just way too good, synergizes great with Irelia, so still go for that as your first item, but going for the Sanguine Blade second on Irelia, a great choice for this. So pretty much the exact same build setup that you would run on Jax, you should be running on Irelia for 9.23. Next up for Rengar, this is going to be for both top lane and for jungle Rengar, so this build setup works for both roles in 9.23. It's going to be Sanguine into a Duskblade and then Yomu, so going for Sanguine Blade rush on Rengar, very good for him because pretty much every time you're looking to use your ultimate, the enemy is going to be isolated, or at least a lot of the time in the early to mid game, so you are really going to be able to benefit from the Sanguine Blade passive there. When you're playing them in the top lane as well, they're going to be isolated pretty much all the time, so it really benefits top lane Rengar even more, so definitely look to go for this build setup on him for this patch. Now, a pretty interesting one here is the top lane Vayne with the Sanguine Rush into Bork and then Rageblade, and you're going to be running the Conquer as your keystone with this setup on Vayne. Lots of attack speed with this setup here. Sanguine Rush into Bork allows you to split push very well. Lots of lifesteal with this setup as well, so when you are in the side lane, if you end up getting chunked out, it's very easy for you to just very quickly lifesteal that back up and look to go in for another trade. So really good side lane setup here for Vayne for this patch. Now for Yasuo, there's a lot of experimenting going on in this patch as to what the best build is on him right now. Not a ton of people are running Sanguine Blade, but the people who are actually having very good success with it. Sanguine Blade into Static Shib and then Infinity Edge is performing great on him for 923. This setup is going to give you a lot of attack speed very early on there with the Sanguine, and the Static Shiv gives you more survivability in the side lane because of that lifesteal from Sanguine Blade. You are going to be delaying your 100% crit a little bit with this setup though, so I guess that's the con to going for this setup on Yasuo. However, if you want to, you can go for 100% crit by getting Sanguine. After that, grab 2 Cloaks of Agility and you'll be at 100% crit. So there's a lot of experimenting to be done for Yasuo in this patch as to what the best build setup is on him, but this is definitely a setup that is worthwhile trying out. So moving on to a mid lane assassin now, Zed is doing very good with the item as a third item on him. So you'd be going for this instead of like Edge of Night or instead of something like a Last Whisper in this patch or a Black Cleaver. This is going to allow you to very easily assassinate a target with your 3 items. You still want to be going for Duskblade and Youmuu's though on Zed because you don't really need that attack speed in the early game. Like you wouldn't want to be rushing Sanguine Blade on Zed because you'd more so rather have that extra lethality and that extra AD on the Duskblade, the extra on-hit damage you get from autoing with Duskblade instead of that attack speed from Sanguine Blade. So go for it as your third item, but you still want to get your core lethality items in Duskblade and Youmuu's before that. Now, a really fun build to try out on this patch is Tristana Mid with the Sanguine Blade. So Tristana Mid has seen quite a bit of play over the past couple of weeks here, or past couple of months, and with the Sanguine Blade, it just makes it so that your all-in potential once you pick up that item is even stronger than it was before. So Sanguine Blade into Infinity Edge and Storm Razor is a great build setup for Tristana Mid in this patch, and it pretty much makes her like that AD carry assassin. So Graves does have a new look for his build and rune setup for 923. You got Warrior as your rush item still on Graves, and then going for a Sanguine Blade into Storm Razor is a great option. Now, people are still experimenting with the Graves build for this patch. Some people are going for Warrior into Sanguine and then for a Black Cleaver or for a Phantom Dancer. Some people are just going for Warrior into Storm Razor, Black Cleaver, completely ignoring the Sanguine Blade. So there is still some experimenting to do with Graves as to which build setup is the number one, but this is definitely performing very well on him so far for this patch. For Master Yi, really good with Sanguine as a third item. You still want to be going for Blood Razor and for Rageblade on the champion. Those items are still core on him and you don't want to pass up on them for Sanguine Blade, but picking up a Sanguine Blade there in the spot to where you'd originally pick up like a Blade of the Ruined King or a Wit's End, it does slot in very well there, so it gives you a really nice solid 3 item spike on Master Yi. Now for Nocturne, he's got a pretty unique setup going around for this patch. It's going to be a Blood Razor rush actually, instead of going for Warrior into a Duskblade and then Sanguine Blade. So the rune setup is also different on Nocturne for this patch. Instead of going for the lethal tempo, if you're going for this setup of like the Blood Razor, Duskblade, Sanguine Blade, then going for Electrocute is actually performing pretty well for 9.23. You're going to be getting the attack speed there from the Blood Razor, so you don't really need it from the lethal tempo, so you can pass up on that. You can go for Electrocute and it just makes your all-in burst and your one-shot potential a lot better with this setup. For Twitch Jungle, this item is very good for this patch. For Twitch AD Carry, I probably wouldn't build it because a lot of the time you don't want to be just by yourself looking for 1v1s with Twitch AD Carry, but for Jungle Twitch, you can either go for it as a second item or actually as a rush item on him. As a rush item, this does allow for you to, once you do pick it up, have very, very potent ganks. When you come in for a gank and you have your attack speed activated from the Sanguine Blade, if you're ganking mid or top lane, it just allows you to very easily pick up these kills here and get snowballing in the early game. So definitely look to slot in either a Sanguine Blade as your rush item or your second item on Twitch Jungle. Now for Udyr, this item is not a must on him as it is for a lot of the other champions in this video. You can still go for your Warrior into Trinity Force and Sterix and perform very well with that build setup, but if you are snowballing, if you're ahead, if you're feeling spicy, then going for a Sanguine Blade as your third item is just going to make your 1v1 that much more insane. Now for Xin Zhao, already one of the strongest dueling junglers in the game, gets even better for this patch with Sanguine Blade, a Warrior Rush into Sanguine, and then Trinity Force, very good build setup for him. You're going to be running the Hail of Blades as well with this setup, so there's just so much attack speed, so much upfront burst with this build on Xin Zhao. So that's going to be it, guys. That's going to round out the video. I think those were 17 different champions that can use Sanguine Blade very well in 9.23, so if you're not using it on one of these champions yet, be sure to pick it up for this patch. If you guys did enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you have yet to already. I'll be coming out with a lot more content similar to this in the coming weeks here for the preseason, so be sure you're subbed to stay up to date. With that being said, guys, thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I'll see you in my next video.